Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Secretary Geithner, it's good to see you again before the committee. Secretary Geithner, at a time when every American is concerned about our ability to compete, whether here or abroad, it's apparent to many of us that the administration has launched a full-scale assault on American energy security. Now, there have been denials by the administration that a moratorium on drilling exists, but permits are not being granted. In fact, just this past weekend, the second largest shallow water drilling company in the United States filed Chapter 11, 1,000 jobs at stake. And this is all solely due to the administration's policy. It's not because of the economy. It's not because of some foreign event. It's solely due to policy made in the White House. Now, I've questioned you before. We've gone back and forth on, through letters on energy policy. And in a letter you sent to me a while back, there was one line in there that really bothered me, and I'll read it back to you. It says, to the extent the credits encourage overproduction of oil, they are detrimental to long-term energy security. And this is referring to the I believe it's eight different provisions in the budget that will be repealed. These are tax preferences for oil and gas that have been in existence for quite a long time. So my question is, it's a very simple starting question. Is there an overproduction of oil in the United States today?
Well, Congressman, I think I would come at that question this way. When you allow individual industries in the United States to pay much lower tax rates than other businesses pay, that means all other businesses pay higher taxes, and that makes the country as a whole less competitive.
But do we really have an overproduction of oil in the United States today?
Well, you know, as you know, I don't.
It's really kind of a yes or no question.
Well, I don't run energy policy. Don't feel equipped to address that question. But again, what I would say is, it makes sense at a time when we have unsustainable deficits and we're worried about our long-term energy security issues, that we have to figure out ways to, frankly, clean the tax code out of special benefits that go to a limited number of industries that mean that the rest of Americans pay higher taxes.
But if we're looking to compete and grow, stimulate the economy and to grow the economy, do you believe that oil is a very necessary part of our energy security and our energy economy today?
I'm sure it'll be part of energy security and meeting our energy needs for a long time to come. But again, we think it's good policy for the country to not providing very generous incentives that encourage the production dependence on very carbon-intensive forms of energy.
But when you say very generous incentives, and if you compare actual equivalent energy metrics with wind and solar, the subsidies for those are much higher on a per-unit basis of energy than they are for oil and gas.
True, but again, I'm not an economist. I think that we would argue that the overall return on those investments for the economy as a whole are higher.
But that's not proven yet.
Well, you know, people may disagree on that, but again, we think for the country as a whole, and I know that this is going to be painful for parts of the energy industry, but I think overall
it's going to be painful for every American, sir.
No, I don't think so. I think that overall
I disagree with that. And sir, if we tax our current energy production, then obviously prices are going to go up, whether it's electricity or fuel at the pump.
No, I think the problem with these tax benefits and the virtue of changing them is that they will not affect the price of energy for the American people. What they I
don't agree with that, and that's not what I'm getting from economists that I've consulted with.
Well, unfortunately, about economists, you know about economists, they can disagree on almost anything, but we have to make these judgments. And again, when you look at these industry-specific tax benefits, I think it's important to recognize that they only exist because other businesses pay higher taxes. So if you care about overall competitiveness of the American industry, you should care about trying to scale those back over time.
There's also a provision with regard to dual capacity companies, and this is going to affect U.S. companies that do drilling overseas, making them less competitive than American companies. Now, I have to question, why should U.S. tax law favor state-owned enterprises, Chinese state-owned enterprises, a Venezuelan state-owned enterprise, over and above U.S. companies?
I definitely would not support that, and I very much doubt that these proposals have that risk. But again, Congressman, we're not going to agree on this, but I'd be happy to talk to you about this. And I understand the concerns you're you began with about the impact of a lot of these changes on specific companies, and I'd be happy to have my colleagues work with you on how best we can limit those effects.
All right.
Thank you,
Mr. Neal is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, I'm delighted with Dr. Boustany's comments because I know now that I'll be able to count on him with Bermuda and Switzerland as they compete in the reinsurance market in his part of the country with domestic companies. I'm going to give you a chance to speak, Mr. Secretary, on this. Could you give us an idea of where we were with TARP, where we are with TARP, and where we're going with TARP? Delighted with your modification